History never stops, and it's not just the big events that make up history. Everyday people living their everyday lives are a part of history. At times, they endure unspeakable trauma, but they also live through jubilant and uplifting times. And they make sacrifices that shape not only their personal history, but that also shape the larger narrative. That's what the Crestwood Oral History Project is all about. We here at Crestwood Preparatory College in Toronto are doing our best to connect to those stories by speaking to the people who lived them.
Technology makes it possible for students to learn in new ways, and an up-close interview between a small group of students and the people who were there that can be edited and digitized for a global audience is the one that we have chosen as our focus.
The Oral History Project is a program where Crestwood students have taken on the role of historian, interviewing and chronicling the experiences of either a family member or someone in the community. As part of the process, students look at the subject's old photos and they learn that a picture really is worth 1,000 words.
So how do we do this? We have visited Baycrest and Sunnybrook hospitals many times and have reached out to local legions and cultural centers, and we have visited people in their homes. Community outreach and service has always been a part of the Oral History Project.
A great deal of emphasis is placed on the World War II and Holocaust era as it is a universal event for the generation that lived through it. And it is important for my generation to speak to these people while the opportunity is present. As a truly universal experience for all involved, the war is a powerful reference point where students can learn how one event can produce different perspectives.
For many senior citizens, it has taken on a therapeutic character, allowing them to share and connect. For students, it is the first time many of them have spoken to a centenarian, and the experience breaks down many of the misconceptions associated with aging. In dealing with people who went through an ordeal, students see an emotional connection. It contributes to learning that goes beyond the academic and intellectual.
Many veterans and survivors, often children or teenagers when they went through these terrible times, have indicated that the program lets them create a new generation of witnesses, allowing memory to be kept intact by a new generation.
Our program has changed over the close to 20 years it has been around. We have been doing interviews over Zoom during and after the pandemic, allowing us to connect with interesting people all around the world.
One of the Canadian veterans we've been honored to include in the Crestwood Oral History Project is Ed Stafford. Mr. Masters met Ed Stafford in the summer of 2020, visiting him in his home in Toronto. Ed Stafford was born in Toronto on January 31st, 1921. Ed grew up in the city's West End during the Great Depression. He attended school until grade 10 when he went to work to support the family. When the war came along, one of Ed's friends joined the Governor General's Horse Guards.
And he joined down in Toronto at the armories down there, the old armories. A few weeks later, his brother came to me and said, are we going to let Herbie go to war alone, or go? By this time, the Horse Guards had moved up to Camp Borden, and we had no way of getting up there. So we hitchhiked. So him and I joined up there.
They spent a few months at Camp Borden, and then they were sent to Halifax, where they boarded a troop ship and headed to Britain. They stayed in England for a considerable time, training and moving around.
Eventually, the long-awaited battle deployment came through, and the men were shipped off to Italy.
Ed suffered a bout of appendicitis while in Italy, and he had to have surgery, followed by a period of recuperation. The regiment moved into France and Netherlands at this time, and Ed was left behind in hospital. He remembers that time here.
Devastating to go through there because there were guys who had lost arms and legs, And I remember they gave me the job of taking coffee around, to these different guys, and I asked this guy if he wanted a coffee. I didn't even look at him, and he said, no thanks. Then I looked at him, and he had no arms and no legs. And I felt so stupid,
He was later assigned to duty in England, where he was a gunnery instructor. He went on leave in early May, and VE Day came while he was in Manchester. He recalls hearing devastating news during this time.
My other friend in there, he was killed the last battle just before the war ended. You know, I was on leave, and I was going into the Canadian Club in Piccadilly Circus. One of our sergeants, I met him right on the, and we were talking, and he said, "You heard about Herbie?" I said, "No." He said, "He was killed overseas." So then I had to go back I finally got back to the regiment. Of course, his brother was there, Walter, the guy I joined up with. We stood looking at each other. We didn't know what to say. I don't know.
Ed was then returned to his unit, and he spent the summer months in Holland, before returning to England and then Canada, where he and the other men fell into the rhythms of post-war Canadian life.
The Crestwood Oral History Project reached a milestone last year with its 1,000th archived interview, and we are proud to have Ed Stafford among them.
Bridging that multi-generational gap and having students meet the people who took part in history, but whose own personal stories are not in the textbooks, is what it's all about.